To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Preet Singh. David Moore.
Here.
Nick Schakowsky. Wanda Simmons. Here. Felicia Hollerman. Here. Susan LaRusso.
Here.
Sharon Herman.
Here.
Tim Borden.
Here.
Vicki Drumheller.
Here.
Richard Gilmore.
Here.
Scott Liebertor.
Here.
Bill Flynn.
Here.
Charles Stadelman.
Here.
Jeannie Hill.
Here.
And Grace Reed.
Here. Okay, present and accounted for. So next will be the approval of minutes. If you've all had an opportunity to take a peek, I would entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
Okay, well, that was quick. We got a motion by David and the second by Grace Reed. Okay. Any discussion? Okay, so got the minutes approved. So new business. We're going to start our plod through the charter. I hope everyone's had a little time to review Article 1, which is where we're going to start. So some of you have been on this committee before, some have not, but I thought we could just take the sections, and I don't think we need to read them. Do we need to really read them? So the first, the creation and powers, is a lot of the basic piece for the city. So I think we'll just start with section 1.01, the creation of powers, and see if anyone has any comments on that introductory paragraph.
Yeah, I have a question is, did whoever put this together not like periods? I mean, talk about a run-on sentence. It goes on for long, long ways.
Yeah.
Is that legalese? Mr. Stokes, is that legalese? Is that the way it normally would be, or?
You know, chances are this is such old language, it's hard to say. No, it's not. Actually, legalese is generally shorter sentences in order to help with clarity. So, you know, I don't know what they were thinking when they created this. They were just trying to say everything all at once. And the part of the problem, and yeah, I could look more into this, but some things that are cosmetic, we could probably do without actually asking the voters, as long as we're not changing actual language. So I'm glad you brought that up, and that could be something that I could look at between our meetings and kind of give an idea as to whether we could kind of maybe turn one
Put a couple
long,
periods in
12, rows here into, 3 or 4 more succinct sentences. Okay. So
we talked about some of that at the last 5 years ago at the charter too, and one of the issues at that time was that every little change that you made was another amendment that council had to approve and that had to go to the voters. So even some of the language is older language, and you go, well, why do we need some of that stuff in there? But it's almost like you get stuck if there's things that you really want to engage the voters in at the end of the day to change the charter, then putting periods and semicolons and moving a word around becomes a big deal if it has to go to the voters.
Right. And that's the point, is that this would not be something we'd want to waste a referendum question on. But like I said, there are a few exceptions to referendum questions. Like, for instance, if the state came down and flat out said, cities cannot do X. Well, if our charter said we could do that, then we could change our charter to be consistent with new law. But I'll look into whether we can do it for cosmetic changes, as long as we don't change. Like just looking at the very first sentence, the city of Sebastian, Florida, now established, continue as a municipal body in perpetuity under the city of Sebastian. That could be a period, and then a new sentence under that name. Yeah. So I can look at that and report back next time as to whether we'll have that ability without wasting a referendum question.
Okay, that'd be great.
Oh, that'd be great. So we're going to put that. Okay, so does anyone else have any comments on that for section 1.0.1? Right, so we'll move to section 1.0.2, which is extraterritorial powers. And I think what we'll do, there's several line items there, so we'll look at the first one first, which is the acquisition of property. And any questions, comments, things that you think don't go with what we're doing now? Hi, Sue.
I do have a question, I guess, for clarification. When they're listing all the things that the city has control of or ownership of, they say seawalls. So does that mean the city owns all the seawalls in the city?
Well, what's important about Article 1, and we kind of alluded to this at our last meeting, most of what's in Article 1 is just kind of restating what powers state law and the state constitution already gives us. So the power to own certain things are what's codified here. It doesn't necessarily say that we own the seawall, because the seawall, that's a more complex question, because the seawall, it depends on whether it's on city property, whether it's on private property, whether it's on private property with a right-of-way easement, whether it's on private property with some sort of, license agreement. I mean, there's so many different questions. So no, seawalls are not automatically owned by the city, but in some places they might be, and other places they might not be. But what this is basically saying, and on all of Article 1, and that's why this may not be a really lengthy meeting, because so much of Article 1 is just restating what the state constitution and statutes already says it's our powers, which we have. Now, we don't have to exert those powers, but this is pretty much saying that we have those powers, so.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like everything in this. I mean, really, there's all kinds of stuff. We can even illuminate with gas, the city. So, yes, Charles.
Just off of, I can't see everybody's name here. Off of what I think it was Vicky, or was it Susan? Sue. It said control or ownership of. As I was going through, do we have to address control or ownership of any mineral rights that may be underneath the ground? And do we have to express any control or ownership over the air rights above Sebastian?
I didn't see that.
I mean, those are our land use and right questions that we couldn't dictate by the charter. So if we have some sort of mineral rights under your property, that would have to come from someplace else. We couldn't just put in our charter, oh, we own all the mineral rights in the city, whether you like it or not. I mean, that would be considered a taking by the city, and would get us embroiled in years of litigation, which would not end well for us. So those kind of powers would have to come from state or federal government, and then even then it would be a taking if they tried it too. So
not that we would take it. I'm saying of what we already own. And mostly it came up when other issues of different minerals were found on some city properties as we were doing some transfer of some work. And I didn't know if we could address those types of problems, if it needed to be addressed at all.
I mean, it could be something that we could look into. I mean, even mineral rights under city property is going to depend a lot on how we acquired that property. Right. Because if we just ended up doing a fee simple purchase of property, we may or may not have gotten the port. Most of the space over the city is restricted, anyway, because of FAA restricting it because of the air park. So
that answers my question. That's great. Yeah. That's fine. Thank you very much.
Anyone else have any comments on the acquisition of property? Okay, so we'll move to page 2 with docks, wharves, and seawalls. Any comments on that paragraph? Yeah, everybody's fine with that? Okay. Move to 3, the use of public lands and waters. We get the bottoms of the waters. That's it. Whatever that entails.
The water bottoms.
the water bottle. Yeah. Okay, no comments on that? This might be an easy one. Public utilities. Comments?
How about the telegraph system? You know, yes.
I think people, you know, when you think about people having these meetings every 5 years and talking about that, is that some of this stuff is antiquated, it doesn't belong there. But again, any of these changes have to go to council, have to go to voters. And so you're kind of like, well, it's not even really relevant, but it was when it was written. So but there are some things in here that are kind of cute.
Could you make a mention that the telegraph system is actually mentioned? Bill wasn't just making a joke there?
No, it is.
Yeah.
If I had said something like that, it'd be like, ha, Charles. Yeah, but it is actually in there.
Well, and again, this is a broad expression of our powers. But like, we have the power to provide a water utility. At this point, we're relying on the county, that's one thing, but it doesn't take away the fact that we have that power, because every municipality would have that power, so.
So just a comment on that. I think at one point we gave away that to the county, the distribution and everything. I mean, we still have we still retain the right to be able to say, I guess, to the county, we want to take
Want it
that
back? Yeah.
Want it back. It's a thought. I mean,
Or to weigh in.
you know,
at least
after
to
I
weigh in.
spent $5,500 replacing all my pipes, I'm not too happy with the county's water
Yeah,
and the pH factor. It's probably ate them up. So,
yeah.
saying.
Is
Yeah,
there anyone that
some city-
hasn't replaced their pipes? Oh, good for you. You're lucky.
House is only 5 years old.
So public utilities, anyone want any conversation on that? Are you all good with the language there and just leaving it alone?
Does that, being such a broad public utilities, would that also include like the cell towers that the city's put up on different areas? And I think the police station has a cell tower, right?
I mean, again, it says electronic communication. I mean, we could put our own up. Generally,
Yeah.
what ends up happening is we contract with the cell provider that comes and
So that kind of
puts in the
encompasses
tower
it.
and puts in everything. But and again, the legislature takes away a lot of stuff from us. When 5G came on the scene, the legislature passed a law saying that 5G towers could be put in, and the city really couldn't do a whole lot about it, because they wanted to preempt us in that area. So, we can only do what we can do.
That's it.
Or when it comes to governmental entities, we're low man on the totem pole. So,
Charles, did you have something?
No, it was just similar to actually what you were saying about the electronic transmission, because a lot of it's Wi-Fi, and if you own those areas around those towers, you get to tax it, and or the transmissions coming in and out. They make money on that, but that was really what I was going to ask. Nothing to add.
Okay. So item 5 is the abatement of nuisances. With power. Anyone have any questions about that?
Does the was it last year or 2 years ago, the state, I used to work in the code enforcement office, and during the building collapse, we had a lot of vacant properties, and I would send the letters out to the listed owner, and of course they ignored it, and we'd send somebody out to mow or do what had to, and then bill the property. And if it didn't get billed, we put a lien on the property. Well, the past year or two, I can't remember which year it is, the state kind of tied our hands on that. So, I mean, does that change anything in the abatement of nuisances, or?
abatement of nuisances are a little bit different, but both still exist, and that code enforcement structure still exists. Like we just had hearings last week where the magistrate gave some orders for us to go in and clean up properties that were in violation of code. So that does kind of touch on this, but this also goes further because it goes to unsafe structures and things like that. Again, this definitely we need in our charter because it's one of our powers. But yeah, that code enforcement structure you're talking about does still exist. So.
Any other comments? No? So move on to page 4, item 6, which is stock. And not as in stock market. Talk about chickens and pigs. So does anyone have any comment about that? No, this is going to be an easy one. Okay, moving on to 7, airports. There's a lot of stuff in there. And that has the leases in there also, or property leases. Any questions, observations? Everyone's good with the airport piece? Okay. So move on to contracts with other governmental agencies. I think that's just pretty broad. Anyone have any comments on that? No, quiet people. And then
Again, there's an entire statutory structure for interlocal agreements. Whenever we go into a contract with another governmental entity, it's kind of a whole different mechanism. But again, it'd be all controlled by state law. Anyway, this is just saying that we can do that. So.
yeah. Number 9, to convey to United States or state of Florida. And that, again, I think is just the 50,000-foot look at that. And then we have number 10, the golf course. Nobody has to be quiet. I knew this would be a fast one. On page 6, number 11 is the eminent domain rights, city rights.
I have a question. It's just maybe I'm misunderstanding it. But in the first, I guess, sentence, to exercise the right and power of eminent domain, that is the right to appropriate property within or without the territorial limits of said city. Is that stating that the city has the right, to acquire property outside of the city limits?
Well, it could, but we'd have to have some lawful reason for it. Where that's generally used, and I don't think it even applies to us anymore, but a lot of cities that, like, let's say we had a water utility, but we were servicing Fellsmere and unincorporated area south, and yet we needed right-of-way for water lines or lift stations or whatever, that would make sure we had that power to fulfill that function. There are a lot, like I think Melbourne and Cocoa. I don't know if any of you guys going over to Orlando ever go out 520, but about halfway, there's that Cocoa water plant out there. That's a good 20 miles from their city limits, but they have their water plant sitting out there because Cocoa pretty much services the whole north end of Brevard County. So that would be why that power would exist. You couldn't just decide, we sit around some day saying we want to take a couple city blocks in Fort Pierce just because we like the building. Might get a little pushback, I'm just saying.
Sure.
Any other questions about eminent domain? Okay, to page 7. The next one is section 1.03, intergovernmental relations. Any questions, comments? Okay, so section 1.04, boundaries. That's probably the most concise statement in this whole charter.
Yep. Yeah. If they had just put that at the top of Article 1, we would have been done. But,
Section 1.05, existing businesses may continue after annexation. Any questions, comments? We're done with what we set out to do, which is, and I don't think we really should get into city council, but anybody have any questions or comments over that first section that we just reviewed?
Yeah, we don't want to get real excited because I think Article 2 is gonna probably be
Take a
a
while.
more lengthy conversation as far as the makeup of the council, the length of terms, and all of that. Because there are a lot of different options, a lot of different ways that we could go. And with 15 of you, I'm sure there'll be at least 25 different opinions. So
I
that's
believe that was the longest conversation 5 years ago as well.
Yes, it was.
Took us 2 meetings to get through that, yeah.
And I think it would have taken us 3, but we were told, hey, you've got to get somewhere else.
Yeah,
You
move
got
on.
to move on.
Move along.
Because there was a lot of,
Don't we want Jamie in here?
pardon me?
Don't we want Jamie in here to help? Section 2.
He's welcome to give his public input. So we have, it's a fairly long section. So I don't know if since it's fairly early, I don't think we need to go into any depth, but if everyone makes some notes about this, because I think it's probably the section that we'll have lots of conversation about. And if you've talked to some of the other people in the community, but I know one of the things that I have starred in just kind of going through the whole thing is talking about election cycles. And so I don't know if anyone else has an interest, but that's a conversation that I'd like to have with everyone in this committee. And a lot of there's several of the changes that were made in this section in the last charter meeting about roles and responsibilities and what happens if. So it doesn't really show up in here, but there is a little thing in, there's an annotation thing somewhere. So it might be, actually might be online. So we'll go through Article 2 and see if we can plow through it next time, but I would definitely consider next time we would have a more lengthy meeting. So we'll go to item 6, which is staff matters.
Could I just ask a question? And again, I'm just a fly on the wall here. It's your meeting. But one thing to consider, because our meetings are going to get more frequent now, whether you want to break 2 up, because 2 talks about the mayor and the council and the length of terms and everything. Then when you get to about 2.09, 2.10, it kind of starts going off into some peripheral issues. Then it gets into codes and authenticating and recording, codifying the code when, and stuff like that. So I don't know if you want to just have everyone prepare all of 2, but if you're not going to get through it all, you could just maybe go 2 up to 208 maybe, and then take 2 starting at 209.
I was
I
going
don't
to
know, how do you-
suggest up to 208.
Do you think we'll have enough conversation from up to 208?
Well, I intend to be ready for all of 2.
Yeah.
But I would commit to...
Of course you do, Grace.
I would commit to 2.08, and then that way, if we're out of time, we're out of time. But if we're here and there's not that much that's going to change, I see us going well over an hour, all the way up to 8,
Yes.
because I've got notes.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So why don't we prepare for 2?
prepare for 2.
And get to where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
And so we start at 6. Is it fair to say that it would be okay if we went to 7:30 and then kind of
Mm-hmm.
made a decision if we're in the middle, if we're in 0.8 or 0.9? Because it's a big flow. So if you're familiar with all of it, when in the first part of conversation, it might flow to 2.09 too, to some of the like operational elements that are in there. So I think if we just prepare for the whole thing and when we get to like 7:15, start seeing where we are. Yes, Charles.
Thank you, Vicki. I was wondering, even though I'm familiar with the city meetings and I follow pretty closely, when I don't have a sense what everybody's idea of what they feel like they would like to accomplish. Are we able to do that at these meetings, or do we have to wait till we, like you just went to, like I would like to know what Grace and Jean are thinking right now, but I don't know if I can go, hey, what are you guys thinking about 2 point, or where would you like to lean one way or another? Am I able to talk openly
And here you can say whatever you want.
Here, but not outside.
Just not outside.
Just not outside.
So
Yeah.
in here, I can say, hey, look, because I've lived here for so long, and the place is so great, and there's things here and there, but I didn't know if you had an idea of what you would like to see changed, and what we should really start leaning into coming
I'm
up
not
on the next 2.0.
necessarily looking for a lot of change. I believe the section around qualifications needs some work.
Which one is that? When you say quality, it's 2A
Eligibility,
So it's
2.02,
section 2.02 eligibility.
eligibility.
without going into a whole lot of detail of what I'd like to maybe see addressed. Then there's some other
Gotcha.
spots.
Page 7.
Yeah. Where it may be something that I think might be either put in for clarification or taken out for clarification to make sure that, things are very clear. Something around the processes for, like there's one section in here, and I don't want to go into any detail.
Right, no, I
'cause
just
I want
wanted
to
to
be
see
able
where
to be in the
everybody was
zone where I'm at
thinking.
when I do this.
Because
but
we're real
there's one
sensitive
section in
about-
here that has some stuff that contradicts another, it kind of contradicts with another section within the same thing. So
Okay,
do we
gotcha.
need one section or the other, or do we still need them both? That type of thing.
Does anybody else have anything real serious like that out of section 2 that we could lean into a little bit?
Yeah, I think we have to talk about the wages, because I don't think anybody here would like to work for $3.75 an hour, which is about what it is right now.
So we can start
Okay.
thinking about what both of you guys said between now and then.
Yeah, I mean, I
And then,
don't think you can do a good job on council unless you put it 20 hours a week. I mean, at least, and, for $300 or $450 as mayor, it's ridiculous, so.
Yeah, I think that's a conversation too, absolutely
conversation to
conversation.
start thinking
But I
about.
think we have to also look into, and maybe the attorney and Mr. Benton can help on, are there any compensation elements outside of this? I mean, is there what else gets reimbursed on the other side? Do they have reimbursement? Because I know they're taking lots of courses and other things, so I'm not familiar, I've seen this, but I don't know what else is in that is in the structure, any of the detail piece. I definitely would like to have conversation with this committee on 2.03 election terms, for sure.
And as you're thinking about things like compensation, in order to prepare yourself for the conversation, go ahead and think outside the box too, because there are a lot of different ways cities do this. One of the important things, if it's touched at all, would be to provide some sort of elevator, because that's what happens because the charter is so hard to change. When you put hard figures into something, those figures get stale very quickly. So if we are going to change it, kind of think about, how it might elevate with the cost of living and stuff. The other thing is just how to base it. Some cities, in fact, I think Palm Bay is probably the closest to us. They base it on, they have a whole formula for their population. Whatever their population is, they get a certain percentage, and there's a calculation so that as their city grows, then the compensation for their council members grow, assuming that it's a more complicated city to govern. I think that's the only one I know of that does it that way. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways. So as you're preparing for the next meeting, kind of, ponder, and I mean,
And-
whatever we put down is kind of only left to your imagination on how we're going to come up with something.
But does the charter have to have a finite number for compensation? Can't it?
And I'm glad you say that, because another thing is that you could put in here is that will be set by ordinance. And that way, an ordinance would change it. Now, what I would suggest as council, and this is the way most cities will do it, is it'll say that if council changes their pay structure by ordinance, it won't take effect until after the next general election. Kind of that fail-safe thing that they're not giving
Makes sense.
themselves a
Does make
raise.
sense, yeah.
They have to win another election for it to kick in, type of thing. But again, what language we come up with will be based upon what you guys decide is the best way to move forward on something.
Sharon?
And that does provide flexibility.
The biggest problem I see with looking at ordinances to change that is no matter how you write it and no matter when the next election is, the general populace is going to see that as the council voting themselves raises.
Yep.
Yeah,
No matter how you word it,
yeah.
I think if there's some way that you could look into coming up with a structure for us that could be put in the charter where it takes it out of the council members' hands and it goes to the voting populace.
Vero did this in '22. And Vero put in their charter, cost of living to go along with the non-union personnel in their city. So I have everything here. I'll give you.
Yeah, and
If
those
you
of you
have
that
some of that, Richard, could you send it to the city attorney so that he could send it to us?
I can give it to him right here.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Because I'd love to
Sure.
read it prior.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Most of you know, like our code, including our charter, is on Muni code, you go on there and you can look at cities all up and down the state, and if you guys are really wanting to do homework and see how other places do it, it's there. Give you ideas.
And we also have to take into consideration the economic situation of all of the city voters and how much pushback there's been just with some of the changes that have been made already. So even if it gets through council, it may not get through the voters because we'll see. But that's not our problem, really. That's council's problem. Yes, Tim.
I'd like to spend some time on 2.02, the next meeting, eligibility.
Yes.
I don't want to go too far into the weeds with it, but, if somebody is convicted of a certain crime or felony, sunshine law violation, fraud, anything like that, are they able to run?
Yep.
That's something I'd like to spend some time in conversation with this committee. We got to protect the city of Sebastian and who's sitting up on the dais, so.
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely. Is there a way we can get like a chart so we can do a little brainstorm thing next time as we go through sections, and then we can a whiteboard, yeah. So because then we can actually look at it and see how many people concur with it, and that might help us move forward with that. Well, that's good. Next, we'll have some good conversation on our next meeting. So does anyone else have any questions or things that they want to go through? Staff, do you have anything? Mr. Benton? Okay. Committee member matters? I think we just went through that. Items for next agenda. We know we're going to be doing, we'll prepare for section 2, and we'll go as far as we get and take as long as we need for this is a real essential piece. There's a lot of meat in section 2. Anyone have any other comments? Yes, sir.
Yes, for the next 2 meetings, I'll be out of the country, but I'll try to coordinate with MIS, try to do a Zoom, but where I will be, I might not get internet for one of the meetings,
Okay.
but
We'll miss you.
I'll definitely try to do a Zoom with you guys, so in case I don't get it, I might be near the mountains or something, so.
All right.
All right.
Anything else? Okay, we are adjourned.